Item 21 is an ordinance in the City of San Antonio city limits banning coal tar sealant pavement products, establishing an administrative penalty fee, and authorizing an effective date of January 1st, 2017.
Doug?
It's my big day. Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss coal tar sealant pavement products with you. I would just also like to recognize some support staff that we have here today. We have Dr. Nathan from Metro Health, who can really speak to some of the health aspects of this issue, as well as Art Reinhardt from TCI, who's been assisting with the stormwater aspect and the enforcement component. We also have some technical assistance from USGS. We have Mary Lynn Musgrove and George Ozuna, who could really help answer some of the technical questions in regards to some of the scientific findings that staff has been looking at, as well as we have representatives from SAWS, Scott Halty, and Ken Deal. So some of the policy background, this started back in November 2014 when Councilman Nirenberg issued a CCR directing staff to consider a prohibition on the use of coal tar asphalt sealants. And before that, this was raised as a priority concern from the Citizens Environmental Advisory Committee. Coal tar-based sealants, it's that black sprayed liquid that's sprayed or painted on many parking lots, driveways, and playgrounds. It's created through the coking process when steel is created, and it's a product that's unused and to create the sealants. Coal tar contains polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAHs for short, which are known carcinogens. These carcinogens are transported into our waterways when seal coat flakes off automobile tires, or it is rubbed as tires track across parking lots and that decays. Those flakes then can be washed into our stormwater system and then back into our waterways. And really, as critical is this dust can be tracked into homes, into businesses, into schools, and can be ingested or inhaled by residents and students. Since 2014, staff has examined the policy and regulations in other U.S. cities, the science supporting and opposing the prohibition, and that's key. I think we spent a lot of time wanting to take a look at both sides of this issue. We've been to TTU a couple times, and one of the big messages from them is to get more engagement, get more information as far as what the public and the different stakeholders feel on the issue. So very quickly, in summary, the ban basically states that no person shall apply or allow to be applied a coal tar sealant product within the city of San Antonio. So the summary of our stakeholder feedback, we target the largest commercial and public property owners and developers, such as Transwestern University Health System, TxDOT, Bexar County. We provided presentations to entities such as Development Services Development Process Task Force and various independent school districts, associations of general contractors, and the SA Greater Chamber. We reached out to 12 different water and environmental advocacy organizations that operate locally, as well as throughout the state of Texas. And we found of the 87 targeted organizations, 36% of the supporters were represented of environmental organizations, citizen advocates, some members of the pavement industry, and the San Antonio River Authority Board, who had passed a resolution in support of this ordinance. The opposition was represented by 7 members of the pavement industry, the Pavement Coatings Technology Council, and 2 property owners. We had numerous responses of indifferent, and the majority of those were folks who either currently do not use it or had determined and stated that transitioning to an asphalt-based sealant, the alternative, wouldn't impact their operations. Examples include HEB, Bexar County, Port SA, University Health System, and Brook City Base. We had also reached out to Joint Base San Antonio. They do not use coal tar, and we confirmed with the San Antonio International Airport that they do not use coal tar and that it's not an FAA requirement. The map on the right shows sort of the landscape of where we are with existing policies related to this issue. There are 16 municipalities and 2 counties in 4 states, that being Minnesota, New York, Texas, and Wisconsin, the District of Columbia, and the states of Washington and Minnesota that have bans in place. course, locally, the Edwards Aquifer has a ban in place, the city of Austin, and some of the newer ones that came online recently were the city of Annapolis, Maryland, the city of San Marcos just a month ago, and then I spoke to a colleague yesterday in Ann Arbor, and they just recently adopted a ban. Finally, a number of national home improvement stores such as Home Depot and Lowe's do not carry coal tar in their inventory. So this is really sort of one of the cores of this issue. It's scientific findings. We have reviewed and analyzed 80 plus white papers, independent studies, and articles published by various universities such as the University of New Hampshire, the University of Toronto, Barrow University, North Carolina State University, and Oregon State. We've looked at independent researchers. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the Environmental Protection Agency state that coal tar sealants are a major source of PAHs. The U.S. EPA and the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences states PAHs are known or probable human carcinogens and toxic to aquatic life. We also found studies that show that 40 urban lakes and streams throughout the United States have high concentrations of coal tar sealants and PAHs, and it's really a national issue with our urban waterways. USGS has determined that this map up here shows the USGS study that evaluated PAH concentrations from sealants dust in parking lots across the country. On the right of that dashed line are coal tar pH levels at, you can see, extremely high levels, and on the left side are the pH levels in asphalt-based sealant. The reason why there's such a stark divide is coal tar is primarily manufactured in the Midwest and the East, and the cost associated with transporting it to the West Coast is very cost prohibitive. So coal tar is available on the West Coast. It's just not as widely distributed. But according to this information, there is a correlation between high concentrations of PAHs in pavements as opposed to asphalt. So as I had mentioned earlier, we really wanted to have a handle on both sides of the issue, and so we held various meetings with stakeholder groups, one of which being the Pavement Coatings Technology Council, which is a trade association that really is trying to advocate that these coal tar is safe use, and there aren't any issues with it, as well as some local coal pavement suppliers who use coal tar. Their concerns are that coal tar PAHs are found in other places as well. It's not just coal tar. That whether we're talking about smoked meats, they're there. You smoke a cigarette, there's PAHs there. They state that the policy should be based on local scientific water samples and not national studies. They've stated that air sampling studies show that coal tar sealants don't pose any health risk, and they are not absorbed by any organism in our waterways, such as minnows or other aquatic life. And they've also stated that any sort of ban would have an impact on local businesses, that the coal tar alternative, which is asphalt-based sealant, cannot be applied during our winter months, and that it does not have the same longevity of coal tar. On the other side, we wanted to get the other picture to this, and so we spoke to peer cities. I talked to representatives in Austin and from other cities that have enacted bans. We've spoken to the environmental industry, private citizens, the San Antonio Cave Authority. And what we've found is that while PAHs are created anytime we burn anything. You could burn a hamburger and you're creating PAHs. It's an issue of concentration. That when we start looking at, for instance, asphalt-based sealants, it has a very low concentration and only 50 parts per billion of PAHs. When we look at coal tar-based sealant, that jumps up from anywhere from 30,000 to 200,000 parts per million. So in terms of the environmental and health concern, based upon the science, based upon the concentration of PAHs in coal tar, staff is concerned that that really does have an implication. We try to do some research as far as the statement that coal tar is the best product to use locally as opposed to asphalt-based, and we've spoken to other local dealers as well as peers in Austin that have stated that it depends upon the quality of the asphalt-based sealants, that they work just as well. You can use them during the winter months, and they last as long. They also are a cost-effective alternative. The other point I just really wanted to make in terms of the health impact, a USGS study had found that living adjacent to a coal tar sealed pavement, parking lot or driveway, for example, is estimated to increase excess lifetime cancer risk 38 times, particularly during childhood. So again, we really want to make sure that we're considering the public health and welfare here, and this just isn't a water quality issue. So in terms of what enforcement would look like if the council decides to move forward with this, really again, similar to the anti-idling ordinance, this is about education. This is really making sure people are aware of why this is a significant issue and what the ordinance means. We would propose this taking effect January 1, 2017. The process would basically be if a complaint comes in, TCI will send a rep from San Antonio Water System out to do a study, to take a swab and test if it is coal tar or not. If it's not, then there isn't any issue. If there is, they have 30 days to remediate the issue, to either coat it or remove the coal tar. And if they choose not to comply, they will be directed to municipal court to have an appearance. And so today, we've looked at all this information. We've observed from our some various stakeholders that there are alternatives, that it does, we are confident that it's an identifiable source of PAH contamination. Working with the health departments, they really have instructed us that that the EPA uses something called a precautionary principle, that if something is deemed potentially to be a environmental impact or a harmful agent, that it would be prudent to restrict it until it's deemed otherwise. The most recent study that we looked at was from the University of Oregon that came out in May of this year, and not only did it state that coal tar, the relationship between coal tar and PAH contamination is real, that all the previous studies have vastly underestimated the actual extent of the concern. And so with that, staff would recommend that the policy prohibition on coal tar sealant be approved with enforcement beginning in January 2017, but leading up to that, significant engagement and education with small businesses, with school districts, and various stakeholders. With that, I'd be happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you. We have several citizens who asked to speak on this item. I'll call them at this time. We'll start with Tom Ennis. And Mr. Ennis will be followed by Ellen Berkey and then Annalisa Peace.
Good morning. My name's Tom Ennis. I am a registered engineer and a lead accredited professional. I do sustainability work currently in the city of Austin, but I'm here on my own behalf and speaking as I do through a website called Coal Tar Free America, frequently on this issue around the country. I'm also grateful for the support of the Physicians for Social Responsibility, who sent a letter of endorsement of this ban earlier this week. Simply put, I'm a fireman telling you your house is on fire and you better get out. That's what this is. Doug did a great job of summarizing the issue, so I won't repeat the science, but I will say there's close to 30 peer-reviewed scientific independent organizations that have come to the same conclusion. No independent research has been done that shows this is not a problem. San Antonio uses about 1.5 million gallons of coal tar sealer every year. That's enough coal tar sealer to pave a driveway from San Antonio to Los Angeles. It's a lot. That's about 400,000 pounds of nasty chemicals being brought in, or 150 10,000-gallon tankers. That's what's being brought to your city to be used to beautify and protect parking lots when there's an alternative. If I could transfer everything I read over the last 10 or 11 years on this topic, I would love to do that, and you would jump up and down and cheer the passage. But here's some highlights. One cancer researcher from MD Anderson called this nothing but big buckets of carcinogen. A Baylor toxicologist said that one hand-to-mouth motion for a child is a significant toxic exposure. He also said a large number of Americans have cancer from this source, and they don't even know it. I wish you could have heard the state legislator from Maine who suffers from asthma. He says when he's around a freshly sealed parking lot with coal tar, he has to struggle to breathe for the next few days after that. So when we talk about air quality, what would you do if you could take the air emission equivalent of one of the toxic chemicals from auto emissions and just with your vote eliminate it all? The USGS calculated that the emissions of PAHs from curing coal tar sealants in the United States surpasses all vehicle emissions, on-road vehicle emissions annually. So you can do a lot for, this is an air quality issue, not just a water quality and a human health issue. And so the house is on fire, and it's up to you to vote to put it out.
Thank you, Mr. Ennis. My apologies, I skipped over Ann LaHurry on the list of citizens to be heard. So Ann LaHurry, followed by Ellen Berkey.
Hi there. Naturally, this went off right at that time. So I'm Ann LaHurry, and I'm the Executive Director of the Pavement Coatings Technology Council, which represents manufacturers of pavement sealers of all varieties nationwide. And we've submitted a number of different sets of written comments. I'd like to thank the council for the time it spent on this, and as well as city staff for the time it's spent on this. There's quite a bit of science that has been discussed here that I could give a long, involved response to, including the fact that one of the differences, that there's difference between the East and the West, is that in the eastern United States, east of the Rockies, we had coal-fired energy systems for much of our history, whereas in the West, they haven't. If you look at that map that was shown, and you map out where the coal-fired power plants were pre-emission, you'll find that that map matches up pretty well. But in any case, I want to commend the City Council for commissioning Texas A&M Water Research Institute to issue an analysis of its water policy for its protectiveness. And if you recall, if you took a look at that report, it concluded, in the science review panel that took a look at that report as well, said that this issue of coal tar sealant ban should not even have been included in the analysis. And the reason for that is because there's no data. By that, they meant that there's no data indicating there ever has been a problem, there's no problem now, and there's no anticipation there will be a problem. The health-based issues, if you focus on the PAHs, to which no animal, vegetable, or mineral on Earth or in space is exposed, you can reach one set of conclusions. But EPA at the federal level and many state agencies, including the TCEQ, has concluded that what you need to do is focus on the health effects of the product itself, not the ingredients in the product, the individual PAHs. If you go down that road, you're going to start wondering about your coffee and your chocolate and everything else that you eat, your barbecue, grilled vegetables. In any case, we believe that the science and the evidence-based of human health and environmental problems says that you should not go forward with voting for this ordinance, and PCTC urges the council not to vote for this ordinance, but instead to allow Market Solutions to proceed as they will. If people don't want to use coal tar product, they don't have to. We don't think that that's the correct choice, but I thank you very much for your attention and urge you to vote against. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lahari. Ellen Berkey.
Good morning, Council, Mayor. When I heard from one of my Sierra Club associates that we were in favor of a ban on coal tar paving sealants, my first reaction was incredulity. Are we still putting hot pitch down on public ways in 2016? The reason I was surprised was because this architect had stopped specifying coal tar roofs about 20 years ago, when I was directed by one of my large institutional clients to cease immediately. I was a little disappointed because actually, as with asbestos, coal tar is great at doing what it does, long-term waterproofing. Asbestos, of course, was and is unsurpassed as a fire suppression material. Unfortunately, as we now know, there are some really big downsides with both of these materials, not the least of which is a considerable hazard to people applying hot pitch in the South Texas sun. And if you don't know about the asbestos downside, you are way too young to be on City Council. Knowing how attentive this council is to business concerns, I would like to note that last week the Executive Vice President of the San Antonio Associated General Contractors said in the Express News, pavement industry workers who apply coal tar sealant have reported their desire to change, reporting serious chemical burns and exposure from ingestion. City Council should act now to prohibit the use of coal tar sealants. I would like to say on behalf of the Alamo Sierra Club and myself that refusing to use coal tar inside city properties has been city policy in the past, does not get council off the toxic hazard hook. Voting for this ordinance is a very good first step. It would be another step in the right direction to direct our city manager to use her discretionary power to stop soliciting bids for coal tar sealed pavements and surfacings on city streets immediately. This is too urgent a public health issue to wait until 2017. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Berkey. Annalisa Peace.
Hi, thank you. Speaking today for the Greater Edwards Aquifer Alliance in support of this ban, and our local member groups, which include AGUA, Alamo Group, the Sierra Club, Bear Audubon Society, Bear Green Party, First Universalist Unitarian Church of San Antonio, Friends of Government Canyon, Puerto Unida, Headwaters of the Incarnate Word, Native Plant Society of San Antonio, Northwest Interstate Coalition of Neighborhoods, San Antonio Audubon Society, San Antonio Conservation Society, Solar San Antonio, Sisters of Divine Providence, and Wildlife Rescue and Rehabilitation. We are very concerned that without this ban, development over the Edwards Aquifer Recharge Zone will introduce a recognized carcinogen into the aquifer. Stormwater flowing over areas paved with coal tar sealants rapidly introduce this contaminant into our water supply, and SAWS does not treat to remove such constituents prior to distributing Edwards water. If the ordinance passes, San Antonio will be the largest city in the nation to adopt such a measure. We hope that y'all will give us cause to celebrate a big step forward today in protecting San Antonio's water quality, and that you'll act by, as an example, showing the rest of the nation how much the city of San Antonio values our water and the health of its citizens. We thank you for this opportunity to comment, and especially want to thank Councilman Ron Nuremberg for shepherding this action as part of the recommendations made in the City of San Antonio and Ferrex Ranch water policy analysis. And I was a bit confused by a previous speaker because the draft of the analysis, the policy analysis that I read, did recommend banning this substance. So we're also grateful to the Office of Sustainability and Steve Kale of the Citizens Environmental Advisory Committee and the other members of that committee who began advocating for this ban in 2012, and to all of our members who contacted you in support of this ordinance, and to the many experts who have come forward to recommend prohibiting the use of coal tar sealants. Thank you so much.
Jim Craven.
Hi, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jim Craven. I live in Council District 9. My business is in Council 1. John Adams said that facts are stubborn things, and whatever our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passion, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence. The Edwards Aquifer is 5,400 square miles under 38 counties. It's larger than Rhode Island and Delaware put together. It holds anywhere from 133 to 300,000 acre feet of water. There are more than 900 permit holders, including SAWs, who are required by EPA to test the water that they sell, the water that we drink, the water that we consume. My coffee cup here is not nearly so large, and I notice that many of you are drinking a lot of coffee today, coffee after coffee. But the coffee that I drank from it contained actually more PAHs than all the tests in the Edwards Aquifer combined. After more than half a century of availability of coal tar sealants, there are no PAHs in the water. Why is that? We have a disparity of interpretation of the facts. There are many sources for these PAHs. New York, like many northeastern states, has a tremendous amount of coal tar sealants. But there, the largest contributor of PAHs is not the sealant. It's home and building heating. In Texas, including San Antonio, one of the largest contributors is vehicles, the exhausts, cars, buses, and planes. If PAHs are so bad, we should all be dead because we live in a literal sea of these PAHs. If PAHs were red, this room would be pink. The Centers for Disease Control found that people who make the sealer, people who apply the sealer, and people like Ms. Navarrete and me who supply the sealer don't have elevated risk of cancer. We deal with this stuff 6 and 7 days a week, but our entire population is no different from the general population in terms of cancer. So if we're exposed to these buckets of PAHs and carcinogens, why is it that we are no different? If coal tar sealants are so bad, why did the TCEQ have their own facility sealed with it? And they paid for it. They approved it. Why does TxDOT continue to specify their specifications, P631? Today, the San Marcos Municipal Airport is being sealed with a coal tar sealant today in San Marcos. Why does the FAA continue to specify coal tar? Why didn't the Edwards Aquifer ban it on the entire region? They only banned it in 2 counties. It's because, and they said in open session, they don't have the science. The scientists for disease and control don't share the conclusions. Scientists at EPA don't share your conclusions. The Food and Drug Agency regulates what we consume and apply to our bodies, doesn't share your conclusion. Why does California line its water pipes with coal tar? Think about that. They line their water pipes with coal tar. Is it so bad? Mayor and members of council, please offer a motion to table this until the results of a FOIA lawsuit can be concluded. The study that the city is using, this Mahler, as referenced. It's the only study you referenced, by the way, in this policy paper. They're being sued in federal court to release the data. They haven't released it. Why is that? Why do they hold their science? Release it. Let the data be available to the public. So I'm asking y'all today, please, after 60 years of availability of these products, give it a couple of months until the results of this lawsuit can be had and be made public and disclosed. It should be free and open information. One last thing. Ms. Navarrete has built her business for 16 years, 25 years for me. We're close to retirement age. These actions have devalued our businesses already. We might have sold them to younger, more vigorous owners, but now we are damaged goods. The retirement we might have obtained has now evaporated. So please, over the coffee and fajitas that contain so many PAHs, let's examine the facts more fully. You've been presented biased information. The map that was put up there so prominently failed to show you all the states and all the cities and the counties who have declined, deliberately declined, to ban the coal tar. There are more of them. Why weren't you shown that? Let us have a chance to present those faithfully. Thank you, Council.
Rebecca Reeves.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Reeves, and I'm a water quality scientist with the San Antonio River Authority. I have studied the sources of contaminants to the river for 28 years. Sarah has served and continues to serve as a technical resource to the City of San Antonio. Sarah's Board of Directors passed a resolution in support of the city's proposed ordinance in May of this year. The resolution recognizes that coal tar sealants are a major source of polyaromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs, which are a suspected human carcinogen and toxic to aquatic life. Additionally, Sarah's scientific staff recognize the largest threat to the water quality of our creeks and rivers is the first flush of stormwater, as it carries PAHs and other contaminants into our surface waters. We recognize one of the most effective ways to reduce a stormwater pollutant, such as PAHs, is eliminate it and its sources. Sarah has worked with the city to promote and incentivize low-impact development practices as they can mitigate PAHs and other contaminants, thereby promoting long-term watershed health. Sarah supports the City of San Antonio passing an ordinance prohibiting the sale and use of coal tar-based sealants. The proposed ban will remove a known source of contaminants in our highly urbanized environment to promote improved water quality and protect the health of the San Antonio River. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Brown.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and council members. Hello, my name is Jason Brown, and I'm a manufacturer here in San Antonio for asphalt emulsion product called Pitch Black. It's an alternative sealer, and it's eco-friendly. It's comparable to price, longevity, appearance, and durability of if it's put down per manufacturing specifications. The concern for public health is the most significant reason for the ban of coal tar sealers in the city of San Antonio. I have many conversations with workers who used to apply coal tar sealers, and they have noticed and voiced several concerns, which include chemical burns, rashes, swelling, loss of smell, and burning of eyes. The majority of workers who have switched from using coal tar sealers to an asphalt emulsion sealer have expressed appreciation for the changes they have noticed from discontinuing the coal tar sealer. In many cases, workers are not fully educated by contracting companies, which can result in various health issues. A lot of workers, they're forced to wear hazmat suits when they're putting down the coal tar, but with extreme heat, many of them start taking them off, and then they're exposed to the risk of direct exposure from the coal tar product. A number of workers have expressed their desire to change to an asphalt emulsion sealer so they would no longer have to wear the protective gear required to keep them safe from carcinogenic properties of coal tar sealer. This is not just an issue for applicators, coal tar sealers, but also an issue for city residents. The exposure continues long after the lot is freshly sealed, as it wears off the friction from the tires, the grinding over the pavement, and releases dust in the air, soil, rain, and is even tracked into homes, which becomes part of house dust, and therefore it's exposed on carpets and different surroundings where kids can pick it up. It's no secret that coal tar sealers have cancer-causing carcinogens, which are harmful to human health. If Austin, San Marcos, New Braunfels have already banned coal tar sealers, then why should we let coal tar sealers be applied in San Antonio? This is something that should not be allowed in the community for the sole reason and the concern for health and safety of the San Antonio residents. Now is for the first time the city of San Antonio has the opportunity to be one of the largest cities in the nation to ban coal tar sealers, provide its residents with assurance that their health is priority. And just to touch base on a speaker before about coal tar sealers, most of the manufacturers that produce coal tar sealers, they also have an alternative product that's asphalt emulsion product. It may not be their cash cow at this point, but so that was where it may hurt their business. But they do have the opportunity and are working on increasing their asphalt emulsion exposure.
All right, thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Brown. All right, that's all the citizens who asked to speak on this item. Councilman Nierenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. The reason why we're doing this today is that science demands that we, especially when it relates to public health, that we adjust public policy when necessary. So, Doug, there's been some questions raised about exactly what the process was used by the City of San Antonio. Can you talk a little bit about the studies were consulted for making this recommendation?
Sure. Yes, sir. So the one thing that I would like to state is that the only studies that we looked at that don't show a link between coal tar-based sealants and PAH contamination were the industry studies themselves. All the other independent studies, whether we're talking about Baylor University, the University of Oregon, USGS, confirmed that there's a link.
How many of those studies did we consult?
We had a total of 80 studies that we've looked at.
And so you're saying that all of those studies, with the exceptions of those that were conducted by the Pavement Coating Technology Council, concluded the same thing?
Liza was the one who coordinated the research.
So we've looked at over 80 studies. A part of those studies was also from the Pavement Coatings Technology Council. So we have looked at both sides of the science.
Okay. And the only difference in the conclusions were those that were conducted by the PCTC?
Correct. The non-PCTC studies have stated that there is a PAH issue and it is a carcinogen. The PCTC studies state that it is currently it is not an issue nor a danger to human health.
Of course, you know, Doug, you've mentioned that this is it's a public health issue. It's also a water issue. Let's not get caught up in just one aspect of it. But with respect to the Edwards Aquifer, how would you respond to the fact that there have been those objections raised to the data in the Edwards?
The lack of data
right.
in the Edwards. I think we've been basing our recommendation on just the countless studies. I think there have been studies in Springs, Toronto. Those studies, plus numerous other studies, show that the issue is with the products. It's not with the geographic location of where this is being used. And so, you know, our position is if the studies and the science are showing us that this is a hazard, and in terms of pHs being everywhere, I think we're not disputing that, but again, it's about concentrations, that the science is showing extreme levels of PAHs, that's the problem, and that we're putting it down in public areas, it degrades, it needs to be consistently repaved over time, and we continually add this hazard to our waterways, our biodiversity, and our public health, that it's reasonable and conservative to take action. You know, I think That's basically how I would answer that question.
I mean, and is it safe to assume that if it impairs urban lakes, the ones that are subject to those studies, they would impair water just like they would anywhere else? That's the basis. And part of this is not just about the Edwards; it's about the tributaries in our community that are already impaired, those that have caused us to be under watch of the EPA, potentially subject to another consent decree to clean up those streams. Correct. I mean, I think that the reason why I think this is such an important step for us is that there is a preponderance of evidence in science that tells us that PAH, not just because it's a known toxin and a carcinogenic chemical, is present at such high concentrations in these substances. Not only that, but there are readily made available alternatives that have been widely adopted. In fact, one of the reasons why the city of San Antonio has discontinued use is because there are available affordable alternatives, and there is that clear link to the science. So with that, may come back in later, but I appreciate all the work. This has been a pretty long process that started in 2014, so thank you for all your work. And if I can clarify just a couple points, we had reached out to TCEQ to confirm their use of coal tar in their property, and their response was that they leased the property, and the property owner chose to go with coal tar, so it was not their choice. And also, TxDOT does not use coal tar on their roadways. Okay. Well, given all that, Doug, I'm happy to conclude this, which has been, we extended through the TTU, we extended the stakeholder process as recently as 2 months ago. So I'm very comfortable that we've had a fair process, and I'll make a motion for approval. Second.
Thank you. Councilman Trevino.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted to chime in. To use Councilman Nuremberg's words, there are alternatives, and in the building industry, I think it's an industry that's always evolving, and the fact that there are alternatives to certain products is a demonstration that there's better ways to go about it. One of the things I want to highlight about this, the fact that if you could go to, for example, asphalt-based sealants, is that you have more color choices. And I think it's kind of related to what we were just last talking about in the built environment. A lot of our built environment is what we pave, and I think it's important to go to lighter colors to help offset some of that heat island effect that we've talked about. Maybe you can speak a little bit to that, because you and I have spoken at length about this, Doug.
I think we've talked about urban heat island before, and anything that we can do to mitigate that. I think that's there is that opportunity. I think if we're evaluating and discussing pavement coatings, that should be part of how we look forward. We did confirm on that question regarding some development services project that it is going to be a lighter colored aggregate, and it is not going to be coal tar.
Good, thank you. And I think it's really important. The project that we're doing at Development Services is going to serve as a great model, a good first step. And I think this is something I can be very supportive of, and just glad that Councilman Nuremberg brought this to us. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Gallagher.
Thank you very much, Mayor. This indeed is one of those issues that I think I can see that there's been a lot of up and down on both sides on it. Initially, when Councilman Nuremberg brought this to my attention, I supported his CCR because I thought this was one of those things that we really did need to look at. However, after hearing all of the input that I've heard on it now, and especially since I've heard from my own district and I've heard from some small businesses, and I'll get into that in just a minute, those businesses that in all of our districts will be affected by our decision today, I'm really concerned about these studies and the idea that there's now studies there we're not being able to find out what the actual evidence was that was presented in them, that there is a lawsuit and FOIA requests that have not been answered. First of all, though, Doug, you've got us all concerned here. I think from what everybody in this room has heard, are you recommending that we not drink any more Saws water?
Not at all. I think the issue, this isn't a water quality issue in terms of, never mind, in terms of coal tar and pHs aren't water soluble. They end up in our sediments, so it's not something that's being transported through our water system.
Yes, Scott Halty, San Antonio Water System. We test our wells regularly. We do full suites of different things. PAHs is one of them. We have never seen PAH in any of our well water, our distribution water, and so forth. So I do want to make that very clear here. I think the big concern is the impact on streams and benthic aquatic animals and human health from that aspect.
Okay, so in other words, the evidence right now is telling us with all the coal tar that's been used in San Antonio over the years by all the small businesses who have saved a lot of money and had better parking lots than they would have otherwise, that the water has not been affected. Is that true?
Drinking water.
The drinking water that we serve has not been impacted from that.
Okay,
No.
thank you very much for that important information and helping us to make our decision today. Secondly, I understand that our airport doesn't use coal tar. However, I also understand that the FAA is required at airports around the country. Can you explain that?
And I have Steve Southers here from the airport who can address that question.
Thank you, Councilman. I researched this thoroughly, this issue. The FAA does not require us to use coal tar for any of our applications. They have suggested in the past it lasts a little bit longer, but they allow local governments to have discretion over what they do with this issue, and the airport will comply.
So why is it that they have recommended that it be used at airports?
I'm an attorney, not an engineer, but I believe it's because the coal tar product lasts longer.
It lasts longer.
And it has other qualities that also make it sometimes inferior to other sealants. And it's really just an engineering decision behind that. Beyond that, and we rely on our design engineers to recommend to us what types of products should be used on the runways and taxiways.
So in other words, you're saying that airports throughout the country have saved thousands and thousands of dollars because they have used coal tar on their runways.
I don't know how much money has been saved. I know that in the past, coal tar has been used at various airports across the country with the hopes of rejuvenating the pavement or extending its life while planning for future pavements. All airports plan to repair and replace pavement over the years.
Well, thank you very much for that information. Doug, I've got a follow-up for you. Exactly what regulations has the EPA put out on the use of coal tar?
Do not believe there's any formal EPA regulations.
There are no formal regulations put out by EPA. How about OSHA? Have they put out any regulations about the use of coal tar?
I'm sorry, I mean
OSHA.
OSHA? Basically, OSHA's position is to really ensure worker safety through methods of controlling and managing the product, but they did not come out with any formal
They have
statements.
not passed any
They
regulations.
have recommendations on
Okay.
what
Handling.
workers should wear,
All right.
but also the engineering controls while the coal tar is being handled. EPA has also conducted its own research, and it was subject to an agency and peer administrative review, and they found that coal tar does release more aromatic hydrocarbons than any other type of surface, and that was in 2011.
Did they put out any regulations?
No regulations.
None around the country. Okay. How about our own TCQ? Have they put out any regulations?
No.
No.
Thank you very much for that important information. I think that when all of us here and trying to be the experts that we're supposed to be listening to the evidence that has been presented, and that we have these major national agencies who are concerned about the environment and they're not issuing regulations concerning this issue, I really think it's indeed a problematic for us to overstep their expertise and come up with our own regulations. But more than that, I think I'm very, very concerned about that people like Ms. Navarrete is here today. We are not even looking at the damage that we're going to be causing small businesses in this community. We're going to actually see a number of them, and I know Councilwoman Gonzalez and I discussed this about what it takes to try to keep pavement together when that you do have a small business, and how that if you use these inferior products that they fall apart right away and the costs go up even more. To me, it's tragic that we're making a decision that's going to hurt them, and we're going to do it in such a blatant manner. I would really like us to wait on this, and I would ask Councilman Nuremberg at this time if there's any way that we could delay this decision until that we finally hear about this FOIA request, when we finally hear about what the actual words are from these major national agencies, as well as our own TCEQ, that have not issued any regulations on this. Let's give it some time. Let's put this one on hold. And I'm a guy that does not like to kick the can down the road. I really don't. But in this case, I think that we'd be making a terrible mistake if we were to pass this here today. Thank you very much, Mayor, for this opportunity.
Thank you. Councilwoman Viagran.
Thank you. You know, this past Saturday, we had a STEMtastic Saturday at Mission Library to celebrate just different career paths for our young people. And two of the presenters there were, one was from the Edwards Aquifer Authority and one was from TCI. And what they highlighted was everything that we have on our streets and in our parking lots and around our rivers goes into our river and our storm drains. And everything we do on top impacts everything that goes down to our river and and down south. So that is one of the things that I wanted to ask Art Reinhardt about is, you know, we have our storm water, our drains, and we have impervious cover, pervious cover, and I know we're also doing a lot of changes. We're looking at SA Tomorrow and looking at our land use and our comp plan, but just the impact of the runoff into our storm drains, because I know we even put symbols on there. Be careful what you dump in our storm drains.
You're exactly right. And so really the driving force behind this initiative was the stormwater quality aspect, not a drinking water. As mentioned before by Scott with Salzman, PAHs are not a water-soluble chemical, so they won't be found in the water in the aquifer. They do bind to sediments, impacts the water quality within our streams, the organisms that thrive in that, as well as the habitat around that. And so it's very important to us from a stream, surface water protection, and that's really what's driving this. And I did want to address the question on the use at the airport. So one of the primary the factors in the coal tar, I guess it's not soluble by petroleum, so you wouldn't see a lot of, or you wouldn't want to use an asphalt-based emulsion there necessarily at some of the locations where they're doing a lot of fuel. Similarly to our gas stations, most of them are concrete, at least in the fueling areas. They're not an asphalt parking lot there, so that's why there's a difference there in some of those high uses. So that's one of the key things. It's not that the product just lasts longer, it's specific to that kind of use.
And everything that flows into our stream life too, it does impact not just the water, but then the wildlife around that too. We learned about the cranes, and if something is off with the cranes here, how that impacts the blue crabs in the Gulf of Mexico. So there's an ecosystem here. And if we, as a council, can be proactive, we can be responsible, and also coordinate all the education we need to for our small business owners, like with coordination through DSD and education of what it's going to take if you're going to put up a parking lot or what have you. I think we have an opportunity we can get it right, and I'm glad that we're moving forward, being responsible and being proactive. Thank you, Mayor.
Right. Thank you. All right. We have a motion and a second on item 21. Please vote. Okay, motion carries. Item 28,